What's the greatest gift that you can give to someone you love? It's the question that we all ask before birthdays and anniversaries and the holidays. We generally search for things, right? A new gadget, maybe a piece of jewelry, something that'll be exciting to unwrap. But I have come to believe that the most profound gifts, the ones that truly change a person, are not things that you can just buy in a store. The greatest gifts are the ones that give us a piece of ourselves back. I mean, think about it. Material gifts fade. They break, they get lost, they go out of style. But when you give someone their story, their history, their connection to the generations that came before them, now that is a connection that lasts forever. It's a gift that doesn't just say, I love you. It says, honey, I see you. I see all the people and all the stories that had to happen for you to be here, and I want you to see it too. I recently gave my wife the story of her mother's family, connecting her to generations of Irish ancestors that she never knew. So join me as I show you how you can give this incredible life-altering gift to your own family today on Trace Your New England Roots. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Well, before we even touch the how-to, it is absolutely non-negotiable that we understand the why, because if you do not feel the reason in your bones, the how will just be a series of chores. Grasping why this matters more than any store-bought gift is the most critical first step. For me, this all started with an album of old photographs. 2 years ago, my wife and I were unpacking, and after we moved into our new home, after we got married, my wife pulled out an old family photo album from one of the packing boxes as she was stocking a bookcase in our living room. Before this move, this photo album was forgotten and stuffed into a box and stored on a shelf at the top of a closet. Inside this album were faces that I'd never seen. My wife had told me the basics, that her mother's family, the Quinlans, were from Ireland, and her father's family, the Plepos, were from Ukraine. But they were just labels, silhouettes, ghosts in a photograph. There weren't any stories attached to them. Who were these people? What were their lives like? What were their dreams, their struggles, their triumphs? We're all the product of those who came before us, and yet for most of us that past is a complete mystery. It's like an entire library of stories has been burned to the ground by time and forgetfulness. And that's when it hit me. What if I could rebuild that library for her? For this project, I decided to focus on my wife's mother's side, the Quinlans of County Tipperary, Ireland. It started, yes, as a curiosity, but it quickly became an obsession, a detective story that spanned centuries and continents. The journey itself was a gift. It was a journey into the past, yes, but it also felt like a journey deeper into my love for my wife. With every discovery, I felt like I was understanding a little more about her. And then when I found her great-great-grandfather's name on a ship's passenger list, arriving from Ireland with just a few coins in his pocket, I saw the resilience that runs in her blood. When I found land records showing the Quinlans working the same small plot of land for generations, I saw the source of her incredible persistence. And it wasn't it wasn't about just names and dates anymore. This was about real people, real complex human beings who loved and who lost and worked and hoped. And then came the reveal for my wife's birthday. And now I didn't have a small wrapped box. I had a large, heavy binder. When she opened it, she was quiet for a long time. The first page was a family tree tracing the Quinlan line back to a small parish in County Tipperary. She turned the pages, seeing the passenger lists, the old maps, and then even photos from the trip that we took to Ireland, where we stood on that very, very same land. She spent hours with that binder. There were tears, there was laughter, and then there were moments of just silence. My wife wasn't just looking at records. She was meeting many of her family for the first time. These weren't ghosts anymore. They were people with stories. And now, those stories were part of her story. One of the most powerful parts of this journey was our trip to Ireland. And if you've ever seen the television show Who Do You Think You Are, you know what I'm talking about. The episode Right in Dublin, Ireland. We were there. We were there. And we focused on my wife's great-great-grandfather, Thomas Quinlan. He came to America back on the boat back in the 1850s. And had he not made that journey, my wife, her mother, and her son Christopher wouldn't even exist. We suspected that the Great Famine was to blame and for his journey, but our goal was to learn why he immigrated and unearth more clues. Our first stop was a meeting at a cafe with Kieran Jordan, who works with a fantastic nonprofit called Ireland Reaching Out. And he helped us confirm what we learned so far. The immigration record I'd found turned out to be correct. Thomas came through New York from Ballyneal and Tipperary, and he didn't know how to read or write. And then from there, we went to the National Library of Ireland, where we made an appointment to view archival material, and we even got these special IDs with our photos on them. We met with a staff genealogist named Eileen, and then this is where the story took a stunning turn. We learned that Thomas had a first wife, Ellen, who died of an illness before he journeyed to Massachusetts. Eileen also unearthed the original Gaelic spelling of Quinlan, which I'm going to put on the screen because it's a mouthful, and our suspicions about the famine were confirmed. We viewed a book detailing the grim reality of what was happening in Thomas's village of Ballyneal at that exact time. And then we even learned where they were all buried. St. Bridget's Cemetery in East Hampton, Massachusetts. This was just so fascinating and deeply moving. This is the power of the gift. It's not about genealogy as a hobby. It's about identity. It's about connection, and it's about understanding that we are the living, breathing legacies of countless stories of survival. Even you are giving someone the context for their own life. And this is something that you can do for your family. But knowing why this is so powerful is one thing, but actually doing it is another. And this next part is even more critical because it's where inspiration meets action. Feeling inspired is certainly wonderful, but turning that into a tangible gift is where the real work begins. And this is where most people just get overwhelmed and quit. So we're now going to break this down into a clear manageable process that anyone can follow. Step 1. Just gather what you know. Before you even think about touching a website or looking for a historical record, you must begin with your most valuable resource, and that's just living people. This isn't just the first step. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. You have to start with what you know and then work backward. This interview phase is crucial. Become a gentle journalist in your own family. Just set aside some time, sit down with your loved one or your parents, your grandparents, cousins, aunt and uncles, great aunt and uncles, and just have a conversation. But don't just ask for names and dates. Ask for stories. And here are a few questions to help get you started. Tell me about where you grew up. What was the house like? The town? What do you remember about your grandparents? What were their names? Did they have any funny habits or sayings? What were the big family traditions when you were a kid? What did you do for the holidays? Are there any family stories that got passed down? Are there any famous or infamous relatives? But be sure to bring a notebook, or even better, ask if you can record the audio on your phone. Just explain to them that you want to preserve their memories. And while you're there, ask about physical stuff, old family Bibles, boxes of photos. Are there any letters or old documents that are still in existence? And if you can snap pictures of them. And just to keep this all organized, get some free printable charts from a site like the National Genealogical Society. You'll want a pedigree chart to start with, your classic family tree, and then a family group sheet for details about a single family unit. Fill these out with everything that you learn. This will become your map, and it will show you exactly where the gaps are, if there are any. And those gaps are where your detective work begins. And that's step 2. The digital detective, your key resources. Interviewing a family can take you only so far back, but to break through the walls of living memory, you need an engine to travel through time. And this makes our next step even more crucial, because this is where you'll find the records that your living records have never even seen. The 2 online giants in genealogy are Ancestry.com and FamilySearch.org. FamilySearch.org is run by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it's completely free. It is a fantastic place to start without even spending a dime. Now, Ancestry is a subscription service, but it's probably the most powerful platform for most people, especially if your family has roots in the United States, in the United Kingdom, or Ireland. And it has the biggest, the largest collection of records, and it has a hints feature that suggests potential matches. But sometimes even that digital trail can only take you so far. For us, online research was the foundation that led to our trip to Ireland. Visiting places like the National Library of Ireland and then connecting with other organizations like Ireland Reaching Out can unlock details that you'd never find otherwise. A heritage trip, albeit we'll call it a pilgrimage, can transform your research from data into a real tangible experience. Step 3 is verify every single hint and record. Now that you have access to all of these incredible digital tools, it is a game changer. But with that great power comes an even greater danger, which brings us to what is arguably the single most critical rule in this entire process. You must verify everything. The biggest mistake beginners make is just to blindly trust every hint or family tree that you find online. Just think of them as clues, but not as conclusions. Your job as the detective is to prove your case. So let's say that you find a 1940 census record for a John and Mary Quinlan in New York. You just look at the actual image. Do the ages match? Are the children's names correct? Does John's occupation fit the family story? So one record is a clue, but two records that confirm each other then becomes evidence. And even better, three records. When that all lines up, whether it be a census, a marriage certificate, a passenger list, that's when you have a conclusion. Always ask yourself, does this even make sense? Be skeptical. Be thorough. This discipline is what separates a priceless gift from just a collection of errors. Step 4 is bringing the story to life, and that's going beyond the names and the dates. So once you've built that solid foundation of verified facts, you're now ready for the most rewarding part of the entire process. And this next step, it is critical because it's what separates a dry academic report from a soul-stirring story. This is where you bring your ancestors back to life. Records are just documents. They're not just documents. They're actually windows into another time. Census records give you a snapshot of a family who shows who is living in the house at that time. It can show their ages, even their jobs. Military records or draft cards often will have a man's full name, his address, his birth date, his employer, and sometimes even a physical description. Parish records and land valuations for Irish research, your church records of baptisms and marriages are crucial. Land records, like Griffith's valuation, can pinpoint exactly where your ancestors lived. Newspapers can be searched for a wedding announcement or for an obituary or even just small town gossip columns that mention your ancestor. City directories list who lived at what address each year and then what their job is. You can then use these to track an ancestor, and you can even use Google Street to then look down at that address as it appears today. And then when you weave these records together, that's when a narrative forms. You're no longer just saying Thomas Quinlan was born in 1824. You're saying Thomas Quinlan was born in County Tipperary, the son of a tenant farmer. He was unable to read or write, and he fled the Great Famine in his late 20s, arriving in America with his wife Ellen, who later died. After her tragic death, Thomas worked as a laborer in Massachusetts. He remarried, he raised a new family. You can start to see this story is formed. Step 5 is the tangible gift, which is the creating the final product. But an incredible story isn't a gift until it's actually given. All this detective work that you've done, all this heart can be lost to time if it isn't preserved in a meaningful way. So this brings us to our final and perhaps most vital step, which is building the gift itself. Because all your work is for nothing if it can't be held, if it can't be felt and cherished. The binder that I made for my wife is a great straightforward option. And here's how you can set one up. Start with a cover page and a letter. Just title it, for example, the story of the Quinlan family, or something similar. Then write a personal letter to the recipient explaining why you made this for them. Then comes the main chart. You can put a big, easy to read family tree right at the front. And this is the roadmap for the whole book. Then divide by family line. By dividing it by family lines, you can divide these by separators. A chapter for each ancestor dedicates a few pages to an ancestor or a couple. You can start with a summary sheet of the key facts. You can list the names, dates, and children here, and then tell their story after the fact sheet. Write a short narrative, or longer, weaving it together, weaving everything that you found, and then show the proof. And this, folks, is key. After the story, include copies of the actual records that you found, the census records, the passenger list, the marriage license. Let them see the evidence for themselves, and then provide any photos and maps. Sprinkle these in amongst the package. Visuals are incredibly powerful. Then you can create this in Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and then print it out on good quality paper using page protectors. The binder itself doesn't have to be expensive. The care that you put into this is what is going to shine through. It becomes a portable museum of their family. We've covered the why, which is the deep emotional power of this gift. We've covered the how, the practical steps to build it. But folks, information without action is meaningless. And that leads to the final and most important part of all. And that's when we ask, now what? This gift ensures that the people who made you possible will not be forgotten. It gives your family a shared narrative and answers that fundamental human question, where do I come from? The process of creating this gift is as meaningful as the gift itself. You will learn things about your family and yourself that you never imagined. My wife was very grateful. It's so grateful, in fact, that she asked if I would create a similar binder for her mother and other relatives. So yes, sometimes it does create more work in the end, but it's meaningful work that leads potentially to being more connected with your family or your friends, depending on who asks. So now here is your call to action. And don't let this just be an interesting idea. Let it be a starting point. Your first step is simple. Tonight, or tomorrow, take 10 minutes and do one of these two things. First, call or text a family member, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, and then just ask them for one story about their childhood or about someone in the family they remember. Write it down. That's it. You've just saved a piece of your history. Or second, think about who in your life you would create this for. Your spouse, your mom, your dad, your child. Go to the comments below and tell me, who would you give this gift to? Just by writing it down, you make that intention real. The greatest things in life are not things, they're connections, they're stories, they are the love that is woven through generations. And giving someone their story is the greatest gift because it's a gift that will never fade. It only grows more valuable with time. So if this video sparked something in you, please give it a like, give it a thumbs up, give it a hype, so that you won't miss stories like this. And it truly helps the channel grow. Share your own family history journey, or post any questions that you have in the comments. I do try to read every single one. And for an even deeper dive into storytelling and legacy, I invite you to subscribe to my Substack. So now go start your story. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Eric with Trace Your New England Roots, where history starts with your family.